Right, the EV crate motor, which a crate motor, the ICE companies make motors, and they just sell them. Chevy, for instance, will give you a big block V8 or something. You can buy just the motor. And now we're starting to see, we saw Bosch do this for electric bicycles, for instance, create just a off-the-shelf, here's an electric motor, you attach it to a frame, and you can be an electric bike business. Paul, what do you know about EV crate conversions?
It's a neat idea. In the ICE world, people have been doing it forever, but it's really hard to implement.
Okay.
And it's relatively easy to put a motor in a car and a battery pack. However, all the other crap in a car, the power steering, the power brakes, the air conditioning, the heater, that's the tricky stuff. So if you don't care about power steering, power brakes, heat, air conditioning, you could do it, but the amount of effort it takes to make all that other stuff work is hugely monumental. If you have to pay a shop, not that we would do it because we have no time, but if we were to do it, the labor cost is about 30 grand.
Ow!
So it's a great hobby if you like to tinker and have a lot of time on your hands, or it's a really, really special car. Like let's say you have a 1969 Porsche 911 that never had power steering, never had air conditioning. That could be a good candidate for it. But if you want to take anything semi-modern, in my opinion, it's a waste of time unless you're filthy rich and or have a lot of time. So if you want an electric car, go buy an off-the-shelf car, a Tesla, a Leaf, whatever, because they've figured out how to make all that stuff work on the back. And the reason it's difficult is in an ICE car, the gas engine's always running, so there's vacuum to run the power brakes. There's a pump turning to run the power steering. There's a pump turning to run the air conditioner. Electric car, when the car is stopped, nothing can turn. There's no belts or anything turning, so you have to power all those accessories with a different electric motor or some other all-electric way to do it. So if you dig into it, it's pretty difficult. Rich Rebuilds did a neat video on, so you want to convert an ICE car to an EV, and he kind of got into it, how much time and money it would take. And it is not a cheap undertaking. So that's my... Yeah. The idea is great. So like, let's say you have a very simple vintage car that was very simple to begin with, then maybe a crate motor makes sense. You know, VW Bug from the 60s or something like that. But anything after about 1990 is going to be really hard to do.
Yeah, so I've mentioned it before on the show. I'm with the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association, and there are several members that have done conversions. And some of them say, that was fun and I'm never going to do it again. Others really enjoy it.
Or they say it costs 3 times as much money as I thought it would originally take.
Right. Yeah, so if you're going to do something like that, make sure that you have a vehicle that someone else has preferably already done a conversion. You can find out, are you going to need a custom plate to adapt this new electric motor to the transmission? And how are you going to do that? There's a whole lot of things Paul mentioned in there.
Where do you put the batteries?
Yeah, exactly. And you don't want to have the batteries just in the back loose. So if you get into a crash, they come flying up and kill you, right? So you want to make sure that you're doing it smart and that you have all that stuff figured out. And if you haven't done it before, find some local club where you can get advice. And there's a couple Porsche conversions in our club that are really beautiful, and they've done clever things like, okay, well, the heating system doesn't work, but I've got these 2 hair dryers, and I figured out where to mount them, and they blow hot air in, and I can defrost the windows now. And so, just little things like that you have to figure them out if you want to have that. One guy, I forget the name of the company. It had what looked like the Audi logo on it, and I said, "Oh, nice Audi," and he was like, "Don't call it an Audi," because this was the I guess Audi was a union of several other companies, and this was one of them that predated that merger, and he was very not happy that Audi took control over the whole thing, and I was asking him about it, and it was like, it's just really beautiful. And he said, yeah, the one bad thing is when you take an old car and you do this conversion. It's great that it's electric, but it's still an old car, and it doesn't have airbags, and it doesn't have all these other amenities. So to make sure you know what you're getting into.
Yeah. A good website is DIY Electric Car, and there's plenty of forums on there of people who have done conversions. People ask questions, and I agree with Patrick. If you have a car you want to convert, find someone who's already done it and kind of see what they used, how they did it, because you could spend literally hundreds of hours messing around trying to make this stuff work. So the crate motor is a good idea, but for very few selected. Maybe the crate motor put in the tuk-tuk glider, and then you can do wheelies in that tuk-tuk.
See? And that's exactly where I was going, Paul Guzik, because I lived in Pennsylvania for 13 years, and one of the most popular hobbies there is, oddly enough, dirt track racing. And all of those things, or I shouldn't say all of them, but a good portion are powered by 650 Suzuki engines. Right? You know what I mean? And they're going around a track all night long, and the smoke is horrible. I mean, I used to photograph these races. If they were all electric, if they had a crate motor, they just drop in. Perfect solution for that. Now, I'm not saying everybody's going to buy a silly little midget race car, but there's neighborhood
But they don't
vehicles.
need air conditioning. They don't need power steering. They don't need all the stuff you want in a normal car.
They don't need 1,200 miles of
candidate.
range. They need to go around the track 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, and that's it. It's done.
Yeah.
But there's lots of edge uses, neighborhood vehicles, for instance, where people could use these prefab motors and battery packs and possibly build their own little thing that wouldn't involve, a cool Oldsmobile Delta 88 conversion. That sounds like a great idea, but all of a sudden you're pushing
It
a
will cost you
35
$70,000 to do it. So
Yeah.
it's worth $70,000 for your old Delta 88.
See, Russell, you didn't go where I thought you were going to go. And when you were mentioning Lancaster, Pennsylvania, I thought you were talking about doing Amish carriage conversions.
They don't use electricity though, right?
Right.
Well, I mean, charging would be an issue, of course, but
So, they do use solar power.
Yeah.
Selectively. Like not in the house, but they'll have their electric fences are often solar powered.
But what about the Capo Camaro?
I'm sorry?
I don't think the Amish have Camaros.
No, going back on subject. The Capo Camaro, which was the Chevy built with the crate motor, that they made a nice dragster out of it. They made 75 of them or something. You bought the whole car. It had everything you needed, power brakes. It was still very much the drag racing association.
NASCAR.
NHRA.
Not NASCAR. and NHA, that sounds right.
NHRA, yeah.
Yeah, NHRA. There we go. Yeah.
I mean,
the moral story, if you want to convert an ICE car, do a lot of research, because it ain't just slap it in place of the gas engine.
Paul makes a super good point, and there's tons of hobbyists out there that have converted, whether it's a Ford Ranger or an Escort or whatever. Rather than inventing the wheel, talk to somebody who's taken a vehicle that you can go buy and who has experience and say, okay, here's what you need. Here's how I did it.